So a little while back, I made a video all about Lavender Town to celebrate the 2023 Halloween season. It's one of the more notorious and well-remembered areas in the original Pokémon games due to its subtle, unsettling nature. There are ghosts terrorizing the town, grieving residents for their dead Pokémon at a gravesite, mentions of abused Pokémon by Team Rocket, and of course, mediums under possession that want your 10-year-old blood. It's a crazy place that comes out of nowhere and an otherwise pretty whimsical experience up to that point. So I kinda wanted to do that idea again with what is, in my opinion, the other most interesting place in the original Kanto region. Cinnabar Island and the Pokémon Mansion. Summer is almost underway where I live, complete with hot and humid days, so I thought it would be a good time to check out the fiery volcano island. Real quick though, I just want to give a thanks to Mah-Dry-Bread for letting me use his save file for game footage here. I actually didn't have any save files at Cinnabar Island, so he let me use the file from his Slowpoke only playthrough. Here's a link to that video. Thanks again, my man. Throughout your original journey through Kanto in the red, green, blue, or yellow versions, you work on the Gym Challenge, exploring each town and collecting gym badges by defeating each gym leader, all while catching and collecting wild Pokemon along the way to build a team that suits you. You conquer the first 6 gyms: Rock Leader Brock, Water Leader Misty, Electric Leader Lieutenant Surge, Grass Leader Erica, Psychic Leader Sabrina, and Poison Leader Koga. You have explored the majority of the Kanto map, beginning at Pallet Town in the southwest, and for the most part, traveling in a clockwise route all the way to the end of Fuchsia City in the south. But you may notice on your map that there's one area left to explore. In the southwest corner just below Pallet Town is a little island just off on its own. For the majority of your playthrough, you have not been able to traverse bodies of water, but finally exploring around the Safari Zone in Fuchsia City, you acquire the HM for Surf, or Hidden Machine. By teaching this to a Pokemon who can use it, you can now ride on them to cross along water. You have 2 options to get to this island: surf south of Pallet Town, or surf west of Fuchsia City by passing by the Seafoam Islands. After beating a couple trainers, some of them say things like, "Pokemon have taken over an abandoned mansion on Cinnabar," and "Cinnabar is a volcanic island." Eventually, you reach this aforementioned island, known as Cinnabar Island. The name Cinnabar refers to a light red stone consisting of mercury sulfide. It is generally encountered through pyrite marksite with stibnite inside veins near current volcanic rocks, as well as inside hot springs deposits. So if you happen to have known this and nothing about what you were about to encounter on the island, it's a good assumption that you might find some fire-type Pokemon. When you finally come ashore, you have reached Cinnabar Island, the fiery town of Burning Desire. And it's honestly pretty small. There are 5 buildings and 2 people walking around outside and no volcano in sight. The man says, "Scientists conduct experiments in the burned out building." And the woman says, "Cinnabar Gym's Blaine is an odd man who has lived here for decades." So right there, you know that one of the buildings is burnt out and that the gym leader is likely an older man named Blaine. Among these 5 buildings, 2 of them are your usual Pokemon Center and Mart, nothing really of interest there. Another is the usual gym, except it is locked, and that leaves 2 other buildings. The bottom left building is the Cinnabar Lab. Examining a picture on the wall, it says, "A photo of the lab's founder, Dr. Fuji." Interesting. Perhaps the very same Fuji as the one in Lavender Town? The man inside says, "We study Pokemon extensively here. People often bring us rare Pokemon for examination." And then there are 3 rooms. The first is a meeting room that actually has 2 people wanting to make some trades, and these trades depend on the version you're playing. In red and blue, the man offers you an Electrode for a Raichu, and in yellow, a Rhydon for a Golduck. The woman offers you Tangela for Venonat in red and blue, and a Dewgong for Growlithe in yellow. The other person here brings up that they found a fossil in Mount Moon. Well, you also found a fossil there by choosing either the Dome or Helix fossil, but didn't know what to do with them up to this point. The second room is the R&D room, simply featuring 2 scientists and a computer. One tells you about Eevee being able to evolve into 3 forms, and the other gives you a TM for Metronome. The computer notifies you of the existence of the 3 legendary birds, Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres, and that nobody knows where they are, but there are plans to explore a cavern near Cerulean. But in the third room, the testing room, there is some lab equipment and yet another person who wants to make a trade, this time offering a seal for a Ponyta in red and blue, or a Muck for a Kangaskhan in yellow. But the other scientist here is Important Doctor, and he is the man responsible for dealing with the fossil you found. His resurrection machine can revive these ancient fossils to give you some brand new Pokemon. The Helix fossil gives you the rock-water type Omanite, while the Dome fossil gives you the rock-water type Kabuto. Also, if you manage to find something called Old Amber along the way, he can also turn that into the rock-flying type Aerodactyl. Of course, these are all well-known Pokemon nowadays, but if you were playing this blind, this is pretty exciting to learn that you can finally turn that fossil you've been schlepping around most of the game into a potential new Pokemon for the team. Me personally, Omastar is one of my favorite Pokemon of all time, the evolved form of Omanite. Kabuto can turn into Kabutops, and really, either choice is solid, but for different reasons. Omastar has higher HP and defense with a much higher special, while Kabutops is faster with a much higher attack. And then you have Aerodactyl, who excels at speed and attack. So all of this is well and good, and everything has been pretty straightforward here so far. It's an island with a Pokemon Center, a mart, a gym, and a place to make trades and resurrect fossils. Seems like a cool little stop. But the other building is where the intrigue comes from. While it looks like a small building on the map, this here is the rather large, multi-floor Pokémon Mansion. This place is full of trainers, wild Pokemon, items to get, switch puzzles to solve, and has a bit of lore you'll find along the way in journal entries. This here is an abandoned, decrepit mansion that was a former home of a scientist, has potentially dangerous creatures lurking about, secret puzzle switches to unlock areas, shady characters, and journal entries lying around. Kinda has some similar elements to another game I recently made a video on. There's my connection to doing this video in the middle of my Resident Evil retrospective. Connections, baby. But seriously, there are kinda some weird similarities here with Resident Evil 1. Maybe it's just me. Again, if you are playing this for the first time, you probably think you're walking into someone's house or something, and all of a sudden, it's an entire area to explore. Just like with Lavender Town, the music here is pretty eerie. Kinda has a bit of a science fiction or alien sound to it. Something sketchy was definitely going on here. Throughout the mansion, you will find 4 very short journal entries, but they do tell a story that can cause some intrigue. July 5th, Guyana, South America. A new Pokemon was discovered deep within the jungle. July 10th, we christened the newly discovered Pokemon Mew. February 6th, Mew gave birth. We named the newborn Mewtwo. September 1st, Mewtwo is far too powerful. We have failed to curb its vicious tendencies. Ah yes, this is where you learn all about Mew and Mewtwo. The first thing to point out though is, what? Guyana, South America? In the actual Pokemon universe, they found a Mew in Guyana, South America. I feel like I don't need to point out the fact that apparently real-world places exist in this game. Sure, the Kanto region is based on the Kanto region in Japan, but I never thought this game was literally taking place in Japan. In all future games, each region is based on a real-world place, but they aren't like one-to-one recreations or anything. And there are even world maps incorporating each created region that definitely don't resemble our world. But this is a universe where Pokemon exist, and apparently you can even go to the jungles of Guyana, South America to discover some new ones. But I also love the escalation of events here, just in a few spread out sentences. A new Pokemon was discovered, they named it Mew, it gave birth, and the offspring is far too powerful and the scientists failed to curb its vicious tendencies. So, is this thing just roaming around attacking people and Pokemon? Murdering them? Is Mewtwo going to show up in this creepy mansion? What do they really mean by vicious tendencies? Whatever happened to the parent Mew? That last entry alone invokes a sense of dread all of a sudden, and I don't know, if I were this 10-year-old who stumbled on these journal entries in a decrepit mansion, I'd probably be a little scared. It's pretty well done in such a simple manner. You are now on the lookout for a potentially very dangerous Pokemon, not having any idea where it could be. But throughout the mansion, you'll find some statues laying around, and pressing the secret switch on them will open and close up certain paths to progress. You have to figure out which ones to press in order to reach new rooms, to get items, or find where to go, all while getting bombarded by trainers and wild Pokemon here. In total, there are 6 trainers, 3 scientists, and 3 burglars. It's a rundown mansion with some stuff still inside, so now there are burglars running around to steal stuff and fight you. Why there are 3 scientists here though, it's not entirely clear. One asks you who you are and says there shouldn't be anybody here. Another tells you their mentor once lived here, and the third one says the place is ideal for a lab, so I guess they're scoping out the place for potential business conquests. The whole place just feels pretty sleazy, like you walked into somewhere you really shouldn't be. But this is where you gotta find the gym key in order to continue the gym challenge. So does everybody need to explore this mansion in order to fight the gym? Do they lock the door and put the key back here every time? Did your rival have to do this too? It's all just such a strange place. But that brings me to exactly what Pokemon you'll find here, either repeated encounters or some new ones. The encounters all vary depending on which of the 4 floors you're on or which version you're playing. So to start off with the red version, there are a big variety of levels here ranging from level 28 all the way to 42. The first floor features 2 fire types and 4 poison types. This is one of the 3 places in the game where you'll find the puppy Pokemon Growlithe, who you may have already found on Route 7 or 8. The Pokédex entry says, it's very protective of its territory. It will bark and bite to repel intruders from its space. Growlithe is a little 2-foot orange puppy with black stripes and light tan fur. It's kind of a fan favorite with pretty well-rounded stats who can evolve into Arcanine if you use a Firestone on it. Arcanine can be pretty excellent on your team. You can find a Growlithe here on all 3 floors, plus the basement at levels 32 to 35 as somewhat common encounters. But this is also the only place in the entire game where you can find another pure fire type, the Fire Horse Pokemon Ponyta. The Pokédex entry here says, its hooves are 10 times harder than diamonds. It can trample anything completely flat in little time. I love when the Pokédex entries are over-exaggerated and viciously threatening. 10 times harder than a diamond, huh? And it can instantly flatten anything. Ponyta is a light yellow small horse with flames along its back, legs, head, and tail. It has pretty high attack and speed and can evolve into Rapidash at level 40, also with high attack and speed. You can find Ponyta here with levels ranging from 28 to 36 as fairly common encounters. And there are 4 poison types here, 2 sets of unevolved and evolved forms. As a very rare counter in the red version, this is the only place in the game to find a Grimer, the sludge Pokemon. Grimer's Pokédex entry says, it appears in filthy areas and it thrives by sucking up polluted sludge that is pumped out of factories. So this place must be really disgusting. Grimer is simply a mass of light and dark purple sludge with 2 arms and a face. It has pretty high HP and attack while having really slow speed. It evolves into Muck at level 38, who you can also find as a wild encounter here in the mansion. Otherwise, Grimer are found here with levels ranging from 30 to 35. But even rarer here in the red version is the evolved form of Muck with only a 1% encounter rate on each floor. Muck is also the sludge Pokemon, but even larger of a massive sludge with 1 arm, a much bigger mouth, and is now 4 feet tall. The Pokédex says, it's thickly covered with a filthy, vile sludge. It is so toxic, even its footprints contain poison. Muck has excellent HP and attack and also has low speed, but is a bit faster than Grimer. You should have also encountered a Muck before in your fight against Koga, so here is where you can finally obtain one if you get lucky, at levels 39 to 42. Muck is actually pretty good. But a much more common encounter in the red version is Grimer's poison counterpart, Coughing, the poison gas Pokemon. Grimer is meant to be a personification of water pollution, while Coughing is air pollution. This is also the only place in the game to get a Coughing. It's a round, light purple, happy-looking ball with a skull and crossbones on it, and openings that release gases all around it. The Pokédex says, because it stores several kinds of toxic gases in its body, it is prone to exploding without warning. Also absolutely terrifying. So if you aren't encountering crazy scientists or burglars, you gotta watch out for territorial puppies out to bite you, horses who can trample and kill you in seconds, 2 types of extremely toxic sentient sludge, and now exploding balls of toxic gas. Why does Blaine make you come here again? This is insane. What other horrors will you find here? Oh, an even stronger Coughing. Great. Koffing has pretty great defense, but also pretty slow speed. You'll find one on each floor ranging from levels 30 to 35. It evolves into Weezing at level 35. And yes, you can also find Weezing here as a pretty rare encounter. Weezing is also the poison gas Pokemon, now much more uncomfortable looking as a connecting 3 varying in size balls of gas. The Pokédex says, where 2 kinds of poison gases meet, 2 Koffings can fuse into a Weezing over many years. Or also level 35. Weezing is also quite good with very high defense and pretty high attack and special. You'll find it in level ranges of 37 to 42. As for the blue version, things are a little different here. Instead of Koffing being common encounters and not Grimer, it's the reverse here. Also, Growlithe is not to be found as it's a red exclusive. Instead, you can find another pure fire type here, Vulpix, the fox Pokemon, also found on Route 7 and 8 earlier on. Vulpix is an adorable little red fox with 6 red curly tails. The Pokédex says, at the time of birth it has just 1 tail. The tail splits from its tip as it grows older. I really like Vulpix, but it's not a top favorite of mine or anything. I actually do like it more than Growlithe though. Vulpix is pretty well rounded with special and speed slightly being its best stats. Like with Growlithe, it also evolves with a Firestone, this time becoming a Ninetales. You'll find a Vulpix here from levels 32 to 35. But the blue version also has a special new Pokemon found here only on the 3rd floor or the basement, the only places in the game to find one. Magmar is the Spitfire Pokemon, a strange looking bipedal looking thing with fire designs on it, fire on its head and tail, and a duck bill for a face. I never really knew what it was, but apparently it has similarities to a duck, a salamander, iguana, and a bird. Yeah, I never really gelled with Magmar. The Pokédex says, its body always burns with an orange glow that enables it to hide perfectly among flames. It's also quite well rounded with pretty high attack, special, and speed. They are rare encounters here at only levels 34 or 38. But that's it for encounters here in Red and Blue. When the yellow version came out, the encounters here changed a lot. Weirdly enough, the only fire type you'll encounter in the entire mansion is a Growlithe and only on the 1st floor. I think that's pretty lame actually. No Ponyta, no Vulpix, no Magmar. Also no Koffing or Weezing. Instead, they added Rattata and Raticate on every floor as common encounters, and also in the basement you can find a Ditto here with a 10% encounter rate. Kind of a cool bonus, as you can only find Ditto here in the yellow version until the very end of the game where it's also in Cerulean Cave. Rattata and Raticate though, yeah, they're all over the place throughout the game. Nothing special here, they're just stronger. The Game Boy Advance remakes of Fire Red and Leaf Green retained the Grimer, Muck, Koffing, and Weezing encounters, as well as Rattata and Raticate, and even Ditto in the basement. Fire Red has Growlithe, and Leaf Green has Vulpix. They chose not to have Ponyta here for some reason. And no Magmar. The Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee games on the Switch customized it even more. Grimer and Muck are now exclusive to Let's Go Pikachu, and Koffing and Weezing are exclusive to Eevee. Rattata and Raticate are in both, as well as Ditto and the return of Magmar, which is kinda cool. But no Growlithe, Vulpix, or Ponyta. It's hard to say what I think the best assortment of Pokemon should be for a rundown abandoned mansion. Rattata and Raticate do make a lot of sense, being rats and all, but at this point of the game, you aren't going to want to find them here. This place is also referred to as a burned, charred building, so I like that you can find fire types here, even though it's not currently on fire or anything. I guess it probably doesn't make a ton of sense finding random dogs, horses, or foxes inside here, but it's cool to have a theme for them. Having the 4 poison types around kinda works, giving off the impression that it's so run down and toxic that it's not even safe to breathe in there, like it has asbestos or something. It's a very strange place without a lot of context from the original games. You just kinda stumble upon it, find some strong fire and poison types, burglars and sketchy scientists are around, and diary entries about a vicious loose Pokemon called a Mewtwo are here. I think it's a fascinating part of the original game that gets lost on repeated playthroughs. I said this about Lavender Town too, but your 20th time around, you are no longer going to think about what this place is or read the diary entries. It's simply a building as an obstacle to get the key to unlock the gym, and that's about it. You might catch something you want or grab some items or TMs here, but otherwise, it's not exciting if you aren't immersed in it. And really, that's why I like making these videos. It's good to take a step back sometimes and remember the stories behind these places you've seen countless times. There really is some interesting stuff in these simple Game Boy games if you try and take yourself back to your first time experiencing them. It's not as unsettling as Lavender Town, but there's still some stuff here to make you furrow your brow, and I love when the game does that. But when you find the key, you can tackle the Cinnabar Gym, led by the Fire-type leader, Blaine. Blaine is an older, bald man with sunglasses and a thin white mustache who originally uses Growlithe, Arcanine, Ponyta, and Rapidash. In the yellow version, he loses Growlithe and Ponyta in exchange for a Ninetales, making him a tougher opponent. In the Let's Go games, his team consists of Arcanine, Rapidash, Ninetales, and Magmar. He's probably the most eccentric of the original gym leaders and eventually became known for being a master of riddles and quizzes. He hands out the Volcano badge and the TM for Fire Blast in the original games. So when the Gen 2 games came out of Gold, Silver, and Crystal, they are seen as direct sequels to Red, Green, Blue, and Yellow. This is discovered throughout the game with the post-game inclusion of being able to travel to Kanto now 3 years later. Some things have changed a lot, including gym leaders and environments, and Cinnabar Island is certainly no different. Even though you can't see the volcano that the island is known for in the original games, it is supposed to be very close by, but probably due to the Game Boy's limitations, it's left to your imagination in the Gen 1 games. But in that 3-year span, the volcano actually erupted and pretty much wiped out Cinnabar Island. This new Cinnabar Island simply consists of a Pokémon Center and a couple signs, and that's it. One sign says, Cinnabar Gym has been relocated to Seafoam Islands. Blaine. It's a bit strange that there even is a Pokémon Center here, and yeah, why is that? The only way to get to this island is by crossing the water, and there's nothing else here. Where do the people inside live? The man inside says that the volcano erupted a year ago, and that Blaine now lives alone in the Seafoam Islands cave. It's also here where you can speak to Blue, the rival from the original games, who tells you how he was bested by Red and gets a bit introspective on how nature can make us all lose in a second. The town of Cinnabar Island is no more. No more lab, no more mansion, no more gym. Kind of a sad conclusion to the island, but then again, it was already a real sketchy place, so maybe it was for the better. Makes you wonder if everybody here survived even. Cinnabar Island's depiction in the anime is a bit different here. The island itself is a tourist resort that's full of people, and the gym has been closed down by Blaine, who stated that he didn't want to continue battling tourists instead of legit trainers looking to get a badge. The mansion is not a factor here at all, and Ash and company save the lab from Team Rocket. Ash learns that Blaine actually has a secret gym nearby. The gym is actually in the volcano, and Blaine has been in disguise the whole time. The eventual gym battle against Blaine is pretty memorable though, as he uses a Ninetales and Rhydon at first, but it becomes an epic showdown of Blaine's Magmar versus Ash's disobedient Charizard. Charizard ends up the victor, giving Ash the Volcano badge. It's interesting to not have the mansion play into the island at all, as I think it's easily the most interesting part of Cinnabar Island. But here, it's just a tourist destination with a gym and a volcano. Still a memorable duo of episodes with the Magmar vs Charizard battle though. In Pokemon Origins, Cinnabar Island is very quickly brushed over in the episode File 3 Giovanni, being mentioned amidst a montage in a span of about 30 seconds. Red goes to the mansion and learns about Mew and Mewtwo and then says he defeated Blaine. That's it. At least we get to see what one room of the mansion may have looked like though. Cinnabar Island was featured in some of the manga, and I know I mentioned this before, but my knowledge of manga is next to none. It's just not my thing, so I can only mention these off of summaries. But the 26th chapter of Pokemon Adventures, Holy Moltres, is all about Cinnabar Island and the mansion, so that's pretty cool. Apparently, Blaine used to be a member of Team Rocket, and they are now trying to find him, labeling him as a traitor. Blaine rescues Red from Team Rocket, and he sends Red to the lab to revive Aerodactyl in order to fend off Team Rocket's Moltres. In Putting It on the Line against Arcanine of the Yellow Arc, Yellow meets Blaine, and the two of them set off to go stop the Elite Four from attacking. The Elite Four are bad here? In the Fire Red and Leaf Green Arc chapter, Double Down Deoxys, there's some mention of Mewtwo by Blaine, how he can sense Mewtwo's agitation. And then way off in the Sun, Moon, Ultra Sun, and Ultra Moon arc, you learn that Sun was born on Cinnabar Island. In Pokemon Zensho, Satoshi defeats Blaine at the Cinnabar Gym where Satoshi's Charmeleon evolves into Charizard. Satoshi and Blaine then try to go seek out Articuno. But the very last thing I feel I need to mention about Cinnabar Island is the fact that it is the place where you can pull off the infamous Missing No glitch. Missing No has sort of become a Pokemon in its own way, even though it's literally just a glitch in the original games that can take on 5 forms. The Ghost Sprite from Pokemon Tower, the fossil forms of Aerodactyl or Kabutops, a mass of yellow and orange pixels, or its most notable form, 2 columns of static pixels. Missing No is considered a bird normal type, which is pretty cool because bird is an unused type that turned into flying. But encountering Missing No can, for whatever reason, multiply the 6th item in your bag to 128, which could be rare candies or Master Balls. Basically, you go to Viridian City, talk to the old man who teaches you how to catch a Pokemon, immediately fly to Cinnabar Island, and surf along the east coast until you find a Missing No. This coast is also part of a glitch where, whichever area you are in the game, you can fly to that very same Cinnabar Island coast to surf along that vertical line, and you can encounter wild Pokemon from the previous area here. This is also a way to easily find and catch Safari Zone Pokemon. I remember my friends and I absolutely utilizing this as kids, and I'd be lying if I said a lot of the items in Pokemon on my copy of Pokemon Stadium 2 weren't Cinnabar coast catches. Once you know about this, it opens up a lot of possibilities for planning out future teams, and Cinnabar Island is where it happens. I feel like Cinnabar Island has a lot in common with Lavender Town. They both have this underlying sinister feel to them in red, green, and blue. They're just places you wouldn't really want to hang around at in the Kanto region. You would think Cinnabar Island would be this cool island, and then you get there and there's a condemned mansion, a locked gym, and a lab to resurrect extinct Pokemon. For as wonky as the original Gen 1 games are, I just love when they go for a subtle, unsettling feeling that certainly gets lost in future games. It definitely doesn't have the same feel in Fire Red and Leaf Green or the Let's Go games, but the series was the Ultra franchise that we all know by then. There is just something about the unpolished feel of Gen 1 that I can really appreciate, like they were more willing to take chances here. Cinnabar Island may be a stepping stone place in order to get a gym badge, and the mansion is really not very exciting to trek through on repeated plays, but it's fun to take a step back and examine what they were originally going for here. The fiery town of burning desire. Thanks for hanging out with me here. Paraspectre will return.